Saudi Arabia is building a city unlike anything on Earth. It's called the Line, a 170-kilometer-long city built in a straight line. No cars, no roads, no carbon emissions. 9 million people living in a structure 200 meters wide and 500 meters tall. Cost? $500 billion, maybe $1 trillion. And it's being built in the middle of the desert, with no water, extreme heat, and no existing infrastructure. So, is this the future of cities? Or is this the most expensive mistake in human history? The Line is part of NEOM, Saudi Arabia's plan to build a futuristic mega-region in the Northwest Desert. Here's what they're proposing. The Line specifications. Length: 170 kilometers. Width: 200 meters. Height: 500 meters. Population: 9 million people. Area: 34 square kilometers. Cost: initially $500 billion, likely over $1 trillion. Completion target: 2030. It would be a mirrored skyscraper city stretching across the desert. 2 parallel mirror glass walls running in a straight line. Everything you need: home, work, shopping, parks, within a 5-minute walk. High-speed rail underneath connects the entire city in 20 minutes. Sounds amazing, right? There's just one problem. Nobody's ever built anything like this, and there are very good reasons why. First, why is Saudi Arabia doing this? One word: oil. Saudi Arabia's economy is 90% dependent on oil revenue. They know oil won't last forever. Either it runs out, or the world transitions to renewable energy. Either way, Saudi Arabia needs to diversify. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman announced Vision 2030, a plan to transform Saudi Arabia into a global hub for tourism, tech, and trade. NEOM and the Line are the centerpiece. The pitch? Build a futuristic city that attracts the world's best talent, companies, and tourists. Create jobs. Diversify the economy. Show the world that Saudi Arabia is modern, innovative, and forward-thinking. The problem? You're building in one of the harshest environments on Earth. The Line is being built in northwestern Saudi Arabia, in the Tabuk province near the Red Sea and Jordan border. Here's what the geography looks like. Climate. Summer temperatures regularly hit 45 to 50 degrees Celsius. It's a desert, less than 100 millimeters of rain per year. Extreme heat. No natural water sources, massive dust storms. Terrain: rocky desert and mountains. No existing cities nearby. No infrastructure. The nearest major city is Tabuk, about 100 kilometers away, and even that's small. Waiter. This is the killer. A city of 9 million people needs massive amounts of water. Where does it come from? Saudi Arabia has no rivers, no lakes. Groundwater is limited and being depleted rapidly. Saudi Arabia's solution: desalination. They'll build massive desalination plants on the Red Sea and pump water inland. The problem with desalination? Incredibly energy-intensive, extremely expensive, creates brine waste that damages marine ecosystems, requires constant maintenance. For 9 million people in a desert with 50 degrees Celsius heat, you're talking about desalinating billions of liters per day. The energy and cost would be astronomical. Now, let's talk about the design itself. The Line is supposed to be revolutionary. No cars. Everything within 5-minute walk. high-speed rail underneath for longer trips. Vertical living. Residential, commercial, and recreational spaces stacked vertically within the 200-meter-wide structure. 100% renewable energy. Solar and wind power the entire city. Climate controlled. The structure creates its own microclimate, cool inside even when it's 50 degrees Celsius outside. On paper, it sounds utopian. In reality, it's an engineering nightmare. The wind problem. A 170-kilometer wall standing 500 meters tall creates a massive wind barrier. It would disrupt local wind patterns, potentially affecting weather and ecosystems on both sides. The sunlight problem. A 500-meter-tall structure with mirror walls reflects massive amounts of sunlight. Where does that heat go? It could create localized heating effects. And what about the people living inside? Do the interior units get sunlight, or do you live in permanent shade? The movement problem. 9 million people in a structure 200 meters wide means incredible density, far higher than Manhattan. How do you move that many people efficiently? If everyone depends on the same underground rail system, what happens when it breaks down? You can't just drive around it, you're trapped in a line. The construction problem. Building a 170-kilometer skyscraper in the desert requires materials, workers, and logistics on a scale never attempted. You need to pour foundations in unstable desert terrain. You need to transport millions of tons of steel, glass, and concrete to one of the most remote places in Saudi Arabia. Here's another challenge. People. The line is supposed to house 9 million people. Saudi Arabia's current population is about 36 million, including expats. Where do 9 million people come from? Option 1. Convince Saudis to move there. Problem. Why would they? Riyadh and Jeddah are established cities with infrastructure, jobs, and social networks. Moving to an experimental desert city with no history and uncertain jobs? That's a hard sell. Option 2. Import foreign workers and expats. Problem. Saudi Arabia already has complex issues with foreign labor. And why would global talent move to the line instead of Dubai, Singapore, or actual global cities with proven infrastructure? Option 3. Forced relocation. This is where it gets dark. The line's construction has already displaced Hawaiitat tribes who've lived in the region for generations. There are reports of forced evictions, demolished homes, and even arrests of those who resisted. Human rights groups have raised serious concerns. And then there's jobs. What will 9 million people do in the line? The plan mentions tourism, tech, and trade, but tourism. Why would tourists visit a desert city with no history or culture when they can visit actual destinations? Tech. Why would tech companies locate in a remote desert with no existing talent pool when they can be in Silicon Valley, Singapore, or Shenzhen? Trade. The line isn't on major shipping routes. It's not a natural trade hub. Without a real economic engine, the line becomes a very expensive housing project with no reason to exist. Let's talk about money. The official estimate is $500 billion. Independent analysts say it's more likely $1 trillion or more. For context, the entire Apollo moon program cost $280 billion. The Panama Canal cost $14 billion. The Three Gorges Dam cost $37 billion. The line would cost more than all of these combined. Where's the money coming from? Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, basically the Saudi government's sovereign wealth fund funded by oil revenue. Saudi Arabia has the money now, but oil prices fluctuate. If oil crashes, or if the renewable energy transition accelerates faster than expected, Saudi Arabia's funding could dry up mid-construction. And you can't build half a 170-kilometer city. It either works as a whole, or it's a useless monument to hubris. So what's actually happening on the ground? As of 2024-2025, construction has started, but it's nowhere near the original vision. Original plan: complete by 2030, housing 1.5 million people initially, scaling to 9 million by 2045. Reality: Saudi officials have quietly scaled back expectations. They're now targeting just 300,000 residents by 2030. The full 170-kilometer line? Delayed indefinitely. They're focusing on building a much smaller initial section, maybe 2 to 3 kilometers, as a proof of concept. Translation: they realized the original plan was impossible in the time frame and budget, so they're building a prototype to see if the concept even works. His story is full of failed megaprojects. Here's why the line might join them. Brasilia precedent. Brazil built a planned capital city from scratch in the 1960s. It worked, but it's widely considered soulless, car-dependent despite planning, and struggled to attract people. And that was far cheaper and in a less hostile environment than the line. Master city precedent. UAE tried to build a zero-carbon city in Abu Dhabi in 2006. Initial goal: 50,000 residents by 2015. Reality: barely 1,000 people live there today. The utopian tech city became a struggling research campus. Ortis, China precedent. China built an entire city for 1 million people in Inner Mongolia. It became a ghost city, empty buildings, no residents, a monument to planning without demand. The lesson? You can't just build a city and expect people to come. Cities grow organically around economic opportunities, geography, and culture. Planned cities almost always underperform. So what happens to the line? 3 scenarios. Scenario 1: scaled down success. Saudi Arabia builds a much smaller version, maybe 10 to 20 kilometers, housing 500,000 to 1 million people. It becomes a niche experimental city, showcasing new technology and sustainability. Expensive, but not a total failure. This seems most likely. Scenario 2: abandoned monument. Oil prices crash or renewable transition accelerates. Saudi Arabia runs out of money mid-construction. The line becomes a half-built ruin in the desert, a monument to unchecked ambition and poor planning, billions wasted. Scenario 3: against all odds, it works. Saudi Arabia completes the project, attracts millions of residents, creates a genuine economic hub, and proves the world wrong. This would be the most shocking urban planning achievement in history, but the odds are very, very low. Most experts bet on Scenario 1, a scaled-down version that claims success while quietly abandoning the original vision. So here's the story of the line. Saudi Arabia is trying to build the future because they know the present won't last. Oil money is finite. They need something else. And rather than develop existing cities or build incrementally, they chose the most ambitious, expensive, and risky option possible. A 17-kilometer linear city in the desert with no water, extreme heat, and no clear reason for people to live there beyond spectacle. Is it visionary, or is it delusional? Maybe both. The line reveals something important about megaprojects. Good intentions and unlimited money don't guarantee success. You can't ignore geography, economics, and human nature. And no amount of CGI renderings changes the fact that you're building in one of the harshest places on Earth. But here's my question for you. If Saudi Arabia offered you a high-paying job in the line with free housing in a futuristic city, no income tax, everything within 5-minute walk, but you're in the desert, 100 kilometers from anywhere, experimental infrastructure, uncertain future. Would you move there?